Cool, man. Well, here
So,
at Bionic Buzz, we are all about people's passion. I want to know where your passion for music came from that led you to this amazing career. I mean, was it a certain album, a certain live performance, or something that was natural for you as a child?
honestly, it was the school bus radio. I was like probably 9 or 10 years old. I grew up on a farm out in rural Minnesota, a little town called Jackson, Minnesota. And my brother and I would have to ride like an hour every morning. We got picked up at 7:15 a.m. and rode an hour, on the bus ride. And one year, a bus driver, the pastor's son, ironically, had long hair, and he tuned into WLSAM out of Chicago.
Mm.
And that station played everything from Styx, the brand new Sweet song, Ballroom Blitz, the new Kiss single, Shout It Out Loud, stuff like that, right? Fox on the Run, so I mean, it was that stuff. And of course, some other things as well, but those bands in particular, really, that's what got my attention. And, there were these really sweet guitar harmonies. There were these really thick layered vocal harmonies, especially things like, well, those bands, Styx and Sweet and stuff like that. So really amazing. It just spoke to me, and I went, I want to do that. And I didn't even know what that really was other than it just sounded cool. And then when I saw it and it glittered and sparkled and shined, I went, no, I definitely want to do that.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, you have a no cover, which is like a double-sided album that's all covers coming out. And today you were supposed to release your Cheap Trick cover, but obviously with the passing of Eddie Van Halen, you delayed it, which is, I feel like that's very respectable. Did you ever come across Eddie? Do you have any thoughts or his music? Obviously, he's so talented.
Oh my God. I mean, that album, that first Van Halen record. And again, it's funny because at that age, most everything I saw in either the record shop or the local drugstore, in this little town where I grew up, everything was either, some cassettes, a bunch of 8 tracks, but mostly vinyl, So I bought records just based on how cool the covers were. And that was one. I mean, I saw those 4 guys. I'm like, I went from Kiss. So I went through my whole Kiss phase. And again, 4 superheroes. And then I saw Van Halen, and they became my new 4 superheroes. They were really the next big fan kind of, record for me, band for me. Every one of them looked cool. And just the needle drop is just like with Running with the Devil all the way through that record, just top to bottom. So yeah, I mean, Eddie, as much as I'm a bass player, Eddie changed my life. And I think, in my opinion, he was the last great guitar inventor, or I should say inventor on the guitar, and probably only preceded by Les Paul. Those 2 guys, when they needed something, they built it by hand. Like Les Paul would make a flanger, a phaser. He invented multi-track recording. Eddie, and you could argue there's Jimi Hendrix, of course, but Eddie, built his own guitars. He'd cut up his own guitars. He'd cut 2 guitars apart and put them together to try to, the Frankenstein, to make the one guitar that he was incessant about. I hear it and I got to go find it, and no one makes it, so I'm going to go in my backyard and build it, and that just goes beyond, just even the playing. And of course that, his playing was insane, but I did meet Eddie, 2002. I had Megadeth had disbanded, and I had a position doing global artist relations for Peavey. And that year they brought Eddie to the booth. Actually, it was 2003, so it was January at the NAMM show. And they brought Eddie in, and of course, it's Eddie Van Halen. I mean, there's a couple thousand people around the booth.
Oh, I bet.
And, just a hoopla. So I met him real briefly. He was not in the best of shape. That was not. He was at I would say probably an all-time low. And my heart went out to him. I myself have been down that road. My own band has been down those roads. And it's interesting that around that same time I became friends with Michael Anthony at the NAMM show. And I'd not met him before, but my boss at Peavey introduced me to him. And Michael's just a wonderful, sweet guy. And he was, kind of contemplating whether he was going to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, I guess, because there was a lot of contentiousness about that. Because he went on.
I remember that. Yeah.
He went on to play bass with Sammy and not with Van Halen. You know what I mean? So believe me, all bands are the same. Trust me. We all have our issues. And so I guess that was probably a year or 2 later after that. But so it was, it's fun to meet your heroes. And so, yeah, I just had just a brief introduction and a hello with Eddie, and then, that was it. And but it was nice to see him get cleaned up and obviously got things together, and the mighty Van Halen to go back out with David Lee Roth, which for my era was that was our big fan favorite. And kind of like, the Eagles when hell freezes over, kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is actually happening, so, so just what a guy, what a career, what a musician, what a legend,
Yeah, very sad. So let's talk about your new covers. It's your band just going by your last name, right?
Yes, Ellefson.
And then do you actually have band members in it, or do you just kind of different people guest starring in like each track?
No, my singer is Thom Hazaert, and Tom has been my business partner, and on certain things manages, my career and things that we do together. And Andrea Martongelli is my guitar player from over in Verona, Italy. Our drummer is Paolo Caridi, and he's also from Italy. And when we tour internationally, they're the touring band. And here domestically, I pulled two members from a group that's on my record label called Dead by Wednesday. Christian Lawrence and Dave Sharp are the guitar player and drummer for the touring U.S. version of the band. And of course, Bumblefoot. Bumblefoot is really an anchor member. And obviously he's busy with other things. So there's often times where he can't, he can't sometimes tour with us, but he is very much a part of our recording group. And as you probably have heard, is all over the No Cover record. The presence of Bumblefoot is everywhere,
When did you start like putting together these songs? Because like it's kind of cool because a lot of them, I mean, they're artists we know, but they're not like the big hits that we know. We see in some of the other different like cover albums, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you appreciated that. Yeah, it's it's funny. I had come home from Nashville. I was recording drums and bass for the Megadeth album. So I'd come home. Tom and I got on the phone, and we originally were going to push out our original music Ellefson LP in October, and we just decided, said, look, that's ridiculous. The touring's not opening up. You can't put an album out of original music and not tour it and do something to support it. So at the same time, we just said, hey, let's do some covers, so, digital EP, who knows? But, after a phone conversation, we had 6, 7, 8 songs that we wanted to do. And of course it ended up now being a double album. And you're right. We chose songs. We just chose songs that we like that, we didn't say, hey, let's do Breaking the Law and Cold Gin. And, we went for, so the deeper cuts, some things that, Judas Priest, Tom's 10 years younger than me. So Free Will Burning was really his era. So we went for that. He chose the Wasp song. Or he chose Wasp. I chose the song because I love that Wasp song. Fast Way, was another one that was, a big hit when I had first moved to LA in 1983. And then, I went back into some of the deeper cuts, like, Sweet F.A., Not Fragile by Bachman Turner Overdrive, of course, Love.
Talk about your love for Kiss. You got the song Beth. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny with that, we did not have a Kiss song on the album, which I thought was a little ironic. And one day Tom calls me, he goes, dude, I was going to surprise you with this because I wanted you to hear it, but I'll tell you right now, it's like we recorded a cover of Beth. And I'm like, no way. I said, God, how brilliant, because nobody covers Beth. I mean, because it's strings and piano and all this stuff. And our friend Tyson Wesley, who worked with Vixen and lives down in Nashville, and we've done some stuff together with him. He did all the keyboard work and all the string arrangement stuff and did all that stuff for us. And it was just like, I was like, holy cow, man, this sounds amazing. It's like, I actually literally kind of get choked up when I hear it.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
It's really good. Yeah, it's really good.
Another song I really like is Ozzy Osbourne's Over the Mountain.
Right.
Talk about putting that one together. Yeah.
Well, the irony. So Tom, in the middle of recording this record, so we started, let's call it June 10th, probably, right? But by the time we kind of got started on this record, by like July 15th, Tom had a heart attack. He had cardiac arrest and went into the hospital. Was left for dead basically. And thank God he had just gotten a dog, and his dog apparently was barking, and his roommate, came in and saw him laying on the floor and was able to call 911, get him revived. Yeah. I mean, he was literally left for dead. So put a pacemaker in him. So, there's like a week kind of carved out of the schedule there and I kept working, kind of moving things forward with the record. Of course, once I realized he was going to make it and he was going to live, it was still kid gloves and kind of moving it forward but I had to kind of keep the process moving forward. But there were a couple of days there where I was like, holy cow, like, is this done? I mean, are we over? Does this kind of all my world of stuff that me and Tom, which is a lot with the label and the coffee and this solo band and this record, does it all just screech to a halt? I mean, it was a sobering moment. But so I had Todd Kearns, who we had already talked to him about singing Sweet F.A.
Yeah.
And then Andrew Freeman, who had sung on Nailed to the Gun, I'd already talked to him about singing on Over the Mountain. And so those two guys actually take the solo lead vocals on those, partly because Tom was down. And it kind of broke Tom's heart, no pun intended, because he goes, man, I wanted to sing the Ozzy tune, but it is what it is. I'll acquiesce and leave it to Andrew. So, it just in the interest of, I think the performances are great and Tom needing a little bit of a break. So it's kind of nice. We got, a couple of those guys just doing their own solo tracks on there too.
Yeah. And you mentioned Todd Kearns. I got to interview him at NAMM last year. How'd you get involved with him? He's so amazing.
I love Todd. I'd first played with him. He was the guitar player in a band called the Sin City Sinners over in Las Vegas.
That's right. Yeah.
And Tim ripped me up. He said, man, hit Todd. You should go out and jam with those guys. And so I did. They flew me out and I went over and jammed with them. And then, of course, as time moves on, he becomes the bass player in Slash's band.
Yeah.
And Slash just took us on tour. Me and Frank Bello, he took us out early last year.
Oh, cool.
To go tour Altitudes and Attitude with him. So we did that. And so we invited Todd out actually a couple of times. He's a big Kiss fan. And so we brought him out and he and Frank sang some Kiss songs. Well, we jammed a couple Kiss songs for some encores and stuff while we were on the
Yeah,
on
when
the
I asked
tour,
him about the Passion Question, he said that he saw the album for Kiss just to cover, didn't know what it was and just bought it. It's like, so many people said
Kiss
that.
has that effect. Yeah, Kiss, it's like, I don't know what's in that, but I'm going to buy that,
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing, records were like that. And we try to do that. I mean, Megadeth records, I think, are the same. You
always have great covers.
Of course, we got a mascot. There's a story there, and even on my solo stuff, it's like, usually the story's me because I'm on the cover of the first record, and now, of course, this one, it's kind of funny because we did an homage to the Def Leppard On Through the Night record, which is that's to me is the heart and soul of Def Leppard for me. That's the record that got me introduced to them. Because it's funny when whatever record introduces you to an artist, that often becomes the one,
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I mean, I loved a bunch of the Van Halen stuff, but Van Halen 1 is my record. Kiss Destroyer is my record.
I was a teenager in the 90s, so it was like Sammy Hagar's Van Halen for me. But
Totally.
A lot of people are like, "Oh no, man, you gotta like the older stuff better." I was like,
you know what? We have a Megadeth record called Risk, and it's taken a lot of flack because it was a much kind of lighter, more mainstream record at a time when metal was getting harder and heavier with bands like Disturbed and Godsmack and Rob Zombie and this stuff. And a fan one day sent me a message just a few years ago, and it was a woman, and she said, I was a young girl when I first got that album. And Risk was the album that was out at the time, and so that was my first Megadeth record, and I bought it, and that introduced me to Megadeth. I bought everything else you guys have ever done. And she asked, why do you guys like kind of put that record down? I feel it's an amazing record. And it really hit me. Like, first of all, don't ever disrespect your own work, number one. And number two, just because popular opinion was what it was at that day, a lot of people bought that record. In fact, that right over there is the I don't know, 500,000 seller plaque for that record,
Nice.
So it did okay. And I realized that it's like, again, Tom, we joke, I'm a 70s Kiss guy. He's an 80s Kiss guy. Like, I don't own any of the records that Tom has of Kiss that he grew up on, yet Kiss changed his life in the 80s the same way they changed my life in the 70s. So, you can't help the year you were born. You had no say in that decision. So,
yeah, I love that. So, when do you think you're going to be releasing the Cheap Trick cover since it's got delayed?
We talked about pushing it back either a day or, ironically, October 9th, this Friday is David Ellefson Day back in Jackson, Minnesota, the town has proclamated it as my own day back there.
Wow.
So yeah, so ironically, I actually kind of forgot about it just when everything going on this week, and I just did an interview with a gentleman from India this morning, and he brought it up, and it kind of got me thinking to go, you know what, might work out well. And then of course the news pushed through a couple hours later about Eddie's passing. And yeah, I mean, look, today is Eddie Van Halen Day. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
Just forever and for always, this day will be. It's like JFK. It's like when some historical monumental figure passes. Like you remember that day forever. Like where were you the day Eddie passed? You know, because that's the impact that he and his soul and his guitar playing had on so many of our lives. And you know, Van Halen has touched everybody around the world. Everybody has heard a Van Halen song. Whether in passing or as a backdrop to their life, you know, Van Halen has had an impact on somebody, and so today is his day for sure. But I think we'll push it back at least a day or two, maybe even till Friday. Who knows? Maybe we'll make that the celebration of David Ellefson Day.
If you ever did like another no cover and you wanted to pick a Van Halen song to cover, do you have one off the top of your head that you would do, or?
You know, there's so many. One would I would probably go for like either Romeo's Delight or maybe Light Up the Sky. I love that intro on Light Up the Sky where the bass goes do 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 do. The bass goes down and the guitar goes up. And it's funny. I actually kind of copped that concept when I wrote my bass line for Symphony of Destruction. Because the guitars go down da 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 da, and my bass line goes da 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 da. Right, it runs total counter to that, and then meets at a note in the middle. And it's funny that opening of that song is so freaking rad, man. That I've always wanted to like reinvent that somehow. Like how can you do it without just sounding like you ripped off Van Halen? You know what I mean? Like what? But I just think that that's what a brilliant musical moment, you know, to have the ascending and descending, and then they meet at that certain note. And so I got as close as I could.
The Destruction, and that was my introduction to Megadeth as a teenager in the 90s.
Oh, nice.
Like, you know, so it's kind of full circle of that. Yeah. You're also working on original songs that's supposed to come out, I guess, spring of next year, right? Or,
that's you know, and we had a tour actually penciled and ready to go for March and April in Europe. And it looks like, you know, that's now going to get moved back. They're looking at probably October or something like that. So, and of course, on the books is the Megadeth Lamb of God tour starting in June. So, you know, I got to always work things around Megadeth schedule. But there's so many things are up in the air. So at this point, I just say yes to everything. And somehow the chips fall where they're supposed to fall, I guess.
All right, well, you can go to facebook.com/EffersonBand. I believe that's correct. And you can stay up to date with everything on that. And then obviously Megadeth website. And any other social media websites I should know about? Anything?
You know, DavidEllefson.com. I think all the social media pushes through to there. In fact, somebody was just talking about it today with the pre-orders. I think all the like iTunes pre-orders and stuff like that for the Ellefson No Cover record will be coming up here shortly. So those will be available. So you can purchase, and we'll probably put up a link now for the maybe some physical product pre-orders as well, so that we can have all that ready. So yeah, it's cool because, you know, Ear Music came on board to be our European record label for this, Ward Records over in Asia. So with those things coming in along with Tom's heart attack, we ended up pushing the record back about 6 weeks, but it actually worked out fine. It actually gave a little more time to kind of set it up properly, and to have a global simultaneous release is always the better way to launch a record.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for your time talking to me, and we'll talk down the road of future music and projects. All right.
Sounds good. Awesome,
right,
man. Good
chat.
Take
care, man.
Yeah. Bye.